I want to be really clear. I want to be clear. There's this term called commercial space, and you hear about commercial space. Yeah, we're trying to do it in a commercial fashion. But what you're seeing here is actually the manifestation of a movement, of a belief, right? I mean, Elon Musk said it in Mexico when he announced his Mars mission. He's going to give the money in his life. I hope his kids get some of it, but what's left over is going to, from Tesla, from Solar City, from SpaceX, to funding a colony on Mars. That's not a business plan. That's a charitable donation to the future. Jeff Bezos is not in this because he wants to make money. He's in it because he believes. Now, there are entrepreneurs in this field, like myself. I'm not a billionaire. I'm the son of a sergeant. And I have to go out and I have to raise money. So there is a commercial aspect to what we're doing. I have to create a business plan. I have to go out there and show I'm going to create a profit even as I'm going for this grand dream. And it is a dream. It is a belief set that we share, that it is the goal of the human species to go out beyond this planet and settle the frontier of space and carry the life of Earth with us. Because there may be billions of planets. We may be discovering all kinds of them all the time. But as they say in Las Vegas, I can only bet on the cards in my hand. And the cards in my hand are this little blue dot. So that's what I'm all about. So yes, Deep Space Industries, we're an asteroid mining company. We're not going to be bringing the asteroids back to the Earth. The universe does that all by itself in its own way. We're going to be using the resources of space to support activities in space. And this is a real thing. We want to do this. We want to build communities in space. We're flying 3 commercial spacecraft, contracted with a commercial company by the end of this year. We're also partnering with the country of Luxembourg, and we're going to be moving out on some other activities. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is a quote from this morning. In 1,000 years, there are people on this earth today who are going to be living for 1,000 years. My job is to give them something to do. All right? Now, I think that, and it's all of our jobs, actually, is to give them something to do. I think this is great that we have these 2 sessions on the same day, right? Because we're talking about living forever and getting out there, at the same time. This is what it's all about. The universe is big and endless and expanding faster and faster, as Bob said. So let's get the heck out there. Let's have some fun. But in the meantime, we have to make it pay. So these 2 gentlemen are also going to be talking about that.
Thanks. I'm Anthony Previte. I'm the CEO of Terran Orbital and the co-founder. I am a space geek, so I am actually a technical person. I'm interested in radio astronomy, astrophysics, and space. We manufacture, as he said, our smallest satellite is about 500 grams, about half the size of a tissue box. Our largest one gets to be about 150 kilograms, and that would be about the size of a mini fridge. Our satellites come apart, so some of them are solid bodies, some unfold. We have satellites that do radar that unfolds with an antenna about the size of the screen above me. So it comes on orbit and it flips out. So we build mechanisms, different things like that. When we talk about the commercialization of space, I'm not really sure what that is yet. So everyone looks at it in a different way. Is it a way to make money? I look at it as a business who operates for commercial purposes. We are primarily a government contractor. 90% of my work is with defense and intelligence agencies, and the remaining is with the scientific community. And we use that as this virtuous cycle of government work to create other things. NASA, who has some folks here, my entire company exists because of NASA. 5 of us were working in a garage and had an idea about doing proximity operations. Could 2 small satellites the size of milk cartons come apart, rendezvous, and dock? And if we could dock them together, would that be a means of refueling satellites in the future, or put them together to make bigger building objects, to build very large antenna arrays? And NASA, to their credit, took faith in our company, and we went from 5 people, and now there's 78 people in the company. And we're on numerous NASA missions. And the one interesting thing I find here is that governments have to enable those businesses. And I look at what's going on, and particularly with the ambitions for Mars here, that's enabling a whole skill set and knowledge that builds other industries and creates more commercial space. Commercial space can't exist on its own without a government saying, here's the groundwork. The amount of infrastructure for space is just tremendous. I think most people don't realize it. There is not a launch pad on the planet right now that was not paid for by a government. Every single one of them came from a government. Yeah, some have been refit by SpaceX or something else, but those ranges, the radar systems, everything came from government dollars, from the government starting that. My business, none of our proposed business would be here unless that investment already existed. Deep space dishes. People have ambitions for Mars and the moon. 45-meter dish, 60-meter dish to enable communications, 80-meter dish. There's no commercial case to make a dish that big. I mean, it's very hard to close that gap. But governments do it because they want to go to deep space and they want to go to Mars. And then that asset is left behind by the government, and all of us commercial folks reap the benefit. So when you look at an ambitious program like going to Mars, that leaves behind infrastructure which helps build the commercial base going forwards. I think Rick mentioned he mentioned about asteroids and that they eventually do come to Earth, and that's an interesting point. We all look why we're here. And it's one thing that I'd like to say, to be really gloomy. The Earth itself, humans have a finite time we'll be on this planet. There's a finite period we can habitate this planet. Right now, there could be a 6-kilometer asteroid tumbling towards the Earth that we haven't noticed, about to slam into it, and it would end all of us. There was an event in 1859. It was called the Carrington Effect. And telegraph lines all over the world burst into flames. The aurora borealis could be seen down as far as the Bahamas. That was a coronal mass ejection, the sun spitting out, that hit the Earth. During that time, we weren't as dependent on electronics and gizmos and everything else, but we sat in the sessions here. Our entire population, feeding 7.3 million people, is dependent on computers, trucks, electrical systems, distribution systems. That event today may not be survivable as a species. And even if not, the Earth has other events going. The core slows down. It's an interesting thing if people handle explosives, which I did in my career. It's not if, it's when. So at some point, humans cannot habitate the planet. And getting to Mars, getting permanent lunar base is the way of preserving all of our species. At the end of the day, it's not about countries anymore. It's about humanity as a whole taking that first step out there. And it begins with baby steps, and it's really governments bringing that down along the way. And I just can't help but embrace what happens here and the ambition of saying, I want to go to Mars, and having a successful Mars mission, and now having the first successful CubeSat mission, and how that just begins a snowball of effect where young people are interested. I was a child. I remember when men first set foot upon this moon. Here men from planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. We came from all mankind and in peace. That's why I went to school for aerospace engineering. And that's the same thing that you're seeing to generations that are here. So, when we look at commercial space, I don't think it's about, I want to put up 400 satellites and I'm going to do this, I want to make a ton of money. It's nice, don't get me wrong, I like making money. But part of it also is, how do we better the human condition? How do we promote the species? How do we do things that have never been done before so everyone's lives are better in the long run? So that's how I see commercial space. And maybe I'm not the horrible capitalist that I should be, but that's actually how I see commercial space.
For us, it's all about not only saving the humanity from extinction, as you pointed out, but it's also to create a good business. So if you ask me, that is the wrong approach. A person who starts with $1 billion in space is going to be $1 trillion in space, and that's how we look at it. We chose to go to the moon not because it's easy, because it's a great business, and we want to create a great business out of it. And that's what we plan to do. We're going to make money taking this stuff up. We're going to make money by doing the things on the moon, and we're going to make money by bringing the things down from the moon. And let me tell you all the things we could be doing. And it's really the only thing that's going to limit us to what we can do is our imagination. My mom was so wrong when she told me, son, you can do anything you want. Sky is the limit. What she didn't tell me was, sky is nothing but the figment of your imagination, because there is no such thing as a sky. When you go to the moon, you don't say, Mom, just went past the sky here. There is no such thing, right? So how are we going to do that? Let me just start with how many things we can do. But what we're really doing is creating the iPhone of the moon. And when Steve Jobs created the iPhone, he didn't know what applications people are going to build on top of that. If you went to any one of us who have iPhone here and say, what would you like to do on an iPhone? There's not a single one who would have said, I would love to throw the birds at the pigs. That's what people did, the angry birds. And it took 9 years till someone came up with another application that captured the imagination of humanity, and that was called Pokemon Go. Imagine, what is the Pokemon Go of the moon? We don't know yet. Could the Pokemon Go of the moon would be that my bringing the moon rocks and replacing the diamond industry altogether? Imagine that. Diamond is not rare, and it's not even used to be the symbol of love and romance. Who has not loved the romantic moon? Who hasn't sat under the full moon and kissed a beautiful girl? Now imagine that, we bringing the moon rock and changing the way people live their life by simply saying, if you love her enough, you give her the moon. Don't promise her the moon. You give her the moon, right? And the girl getting up and saying, hey, why are you giving me diamond? I thought you loved me. Because if you loved me, you would have given me the moon. You're trying to buy me? No, I'm not going to marry you. And imagine when the honeymoon is really about taking your honey to the moon, not taking your honey to Paris. That'll be honey Paris, right? Or honey Hawaii. No, you want the real honeymoon. But imagine putting your footprint on the moon digitally. You put your footprint like a pin art, and the footprint there for $99. Think about that. Projecting the picture of your family for 99 cents. Send a message to Trump, F you, 99 cents. But I can go on and on about the things we could do. What made this region so great? We found the oil. Guess what the oil of the space economy is? The water. Moon has nothing but the water. And you know what Americans did to find the water? What they do best. They bombed it. So we actually, 4 years ago, we took an L-Cross and bombed the moon. We just love bombing things, right? And the next thing we knew, the water came pluming out of there. That is the water that we have. Water means hydrogen and oxygen. Fuel for the rocket, fuel for the humans. There is no doubt in my mind we're going to settle on the moon. And the reason is the Mars is really good. Moon is 3 days away. Would you rather be a lunatic 3 days away or be a Martian stuck for 6 months? I don't want to be a damn Martian. I want to be a lunatic. Right? But this is just the beginning of the kind of things we'll do, because the things we need to do, whether it's learning to live on the radiation by taking the bacterial genes that thrive on the radioactive waste, CRISPR technology to modify our own genes so we can not only live in the radiation, we thrive on the radiation. And then one day we're going to be walking with the honey and say, honey, let's go for a walk because I'm really hungry. Let's go get some radiation because that's going to be a source of energy for us. Imagine that. Because point is, we can achieve our dream of becoming a multi-planetary society. And by the way, don't get it wrong, we're going to make lots of money. The best way to make money is really if you want to create a $10 billion company, all you have to do is solve a $100 billion problem. And you got a 16 quadrillion worth of minerals on the moon, helium-3. You can bring back and have a clean energy source to power this planet. You can go out and have the rare earth elements, whether it is a platinum-grade material or just using the resources on the moon itself to create a 3D printing house that we can all live in. So just stay with me here, and let's all be lunatic. Let's all go to space, and Lars, I'll have some serious fun here. So, if I could go on my knees and ask you, would you come to the moon with me? Who is going to come with me? Come on, guys. Everyone.
Buzz is one. He's been there and done that.
Buzz, but remember, you didn't have me.
Okay, let's do questions. Who's got some questions? All right, come on. Question. Somebody's got a question here. Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning then. How are you getting to the moon?
Oh, it's really easy. You buy as opposed to buying an expensive rocket, you buy a cheap rocket. So our total cost of going to the moon, believe it or not, is $7 million. $4 million rocket and a $3 million lander. And that $4 million is going to come down to $1 million next year. It's going to be $100,000 in 5 years. 10 years, $10,000, you can buy the ticket to the moon. Seriously, it's really easy part is that we have to think very differently than everybody has thought before. You don't need a big rocket to go to the moon. You take a smaller rocket that are 3D printed rockets, and you have a lander which is extremely light and 3D printed with carbon fiber, and you're able to put the booster on the moon. So you take a rocket that only goes to low Earth orbit, and you use your booster to go all the way to the moon and use the fuel to land on the moon. And then you use our rocket and our lander uses hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, that comes from the water. So you have more fuel that you want, and you can not only process the stuff there, you actually start to control the real estate there. So imagine the only company on the planet to have a permission to land on the moon, and we have a right to bring back everything that we want. President Obama signed into the law that says anything we bring back, we get to own it. President also, now we have a permission to leave Earth orbit and land on the moon. So when you look at Elon Musk, you look at Richard Branson, underachievers, low Earth orbit. The only person who's going to leave the Earth orbit and go to the moon, the only one company. So when you start thinking about Elon Musk on my right at Cape Canaveral or Jeff Bezos on my left here, we are in a good neighborhood, but we're teaching them how to be ambitious and how to do audacious thinking.
Okay. Hey, Tony, do you have, describe your vision of how micro spacecraft can be used to explore the solar system, support human settlement to the solar system?
I think there's probably three ways. One is if you have a very in the outer planets, if you have a very, very big expensive asset, like a 2,000 kilogram spacecraft, and you want to go to Jupiter, you don't want to do risky things because then your big spacecraft is at risk. Whereas having small nanos that come off of it, they can deploy off of it and leave and do things where if your mission fails, you've only lost a little part of it, you haven't lost your mothership. And it's kind of an interesting concept because I believe every Mars mission that I'm aware of at this point is carrying CubeSats. I mean, we have 2 that are going to Mars on NASA missions. Every lunar mission is carrying cubes on it. And it's a low-cost way of, one, doing experimental work. And I think the most important thing for micros that I see right now, and look, we have full developed operating platforms that search for military ground radars and do all sorts of exciting defense and intelligence things. I think the one thing that has happened is that people are scared to fail. It was interesting, we had this conversation about scientists. The scientist scientist has an experiment, it goes wrong, he learns a lot, he goes on. If that's a business, it's like, you didn't know what the hell you were doing. What the nanosatellites and small satellites like to do is return to experimental engineering and say, my mission success is this big. I'm going to try and look for objects with synthetic aperture radar that's 15 meters. That's my bar as a minimum. But I think I have enough energy and density and my antenna will be smooth enough to get down to 3 meters. That's my success. You fly, you see, you learn. You get to 7 meters. You're okay, the antenna needed to be smoother or my ADC system needed to be a little more precise. That's where I see the benefit of that. It allows you to do iterations towards really big goals, but promoting things. And the last place is manufacturing. It's one of the things that we start talking about and we go back and forth with in the medical thing. It's like there are proteins that can only be synthesized in microgravity. There are crystals that can only be grown inside of microgravity. Can you put them into small objects, grow them, and then return them to Earth? What's a kilogram of perfect silicone worth? I mean, I don't know what the price of it is. I mean, I heard NVIDIA say it's $50 to $100 million. That's where I see that ultimate commercialization taking place, or building drugs that you just can't get on the Earth. So that's the places where I really see it. And also supporting, look, it's going to support science, it's going to support military, it's going to support reconnaissance, surveillance, and all the other good stuff we need.
Rick, your company is doing some stuff now, but what it hits its stride, you want to mine asteroids and stuff like that. Now, do you need changes in property laws in order to be able to do that, to stake claims to asteroids? In other words, to Rick, so what about the property question here in space? What do we need to make a space mining industry possible?
Yeah, it's an evolutionary change in the thinking that we're trying to get people to engage with. Now, there was a law passed, and you think what we're doing is crazy. It was introduced in a Republican Congress and signed by a Democratic president in our country. I mean, they actually agreed on this thing, right? That's science fiction. And I have to tell you, though, it started out, it was pretty crude. It was, kind of screw you, we're going to go grab this stuff. And we did a lot of work, the State Department, the House, all these different people working together to make sure that the law actually reflected what's called the Outer Space Treaty, which is the standing document by which we operate in space. And so now we've kind of brought that into this document. One of the things we're not doing is staking a claim yet. Now, when we start talking about cities on Mars, that's a different kind of thing. All we're asking for is a right of non-interference and to be able to own what we harvest. I'll give you the example, the customary law of the sea that goes on right now, which is if I have a boat and I'm in the ocean and I'm above a school of fish, I lower my net, I capture those fish in my net. They're really still not mine because those fish, some of them will get away. They're only mine when I put them on my boat. Now they're my fish. But nowhere in that process is my presumption that I own the ocean. That's all we're asking for in terms of harvesting space resources to begin with. And we want to be careful about that because when you start talking about actual property rights, where you're going out and I built my little house on the prairie on Mars and I want to be able to own it and give it to my children, that's a different kind of conversation that's a little bit premature right now. We don't want to start triggering that. As our friend Preet Warden says, if you start introducing something like that, the antibodies come out. In other words, the academics and the people that don't have a lot more to do then come up with theoretical reasons why you can't do stuff. And we have to be careful about that. So one step at a time. And I think that as the culture follows what's happening, gets more and more excited by the success of people like us and our friends and with the concept. By the way, Bob, you need to get a lot of credit on this. You're one of the first guys that came out with the idea of living off the land. And I think that that's a core principle all of us are talking about. My company is based on harvesting space resources. And I think that it is a cooperative interaction around the world. I love the fact that Luxembourg has come out with its policy. UAE, way ahead of the game. So let's get more people involved, more countries involved. I've got too many Australians in my company, but yeah, we'll take Australia. And let's get out there and start really working together. And I want to make one more comment on this. There is an idea that some people have moving forward that somehow we have to, it's sort of a leftover sort of concept of a socialist approach to space, whereby we have to give everybody a portion of the profits that we make on our way out into space. If we do that, nothing will happen. Enterprise works. If you don't believe me, reach into your pocket, you've got a cell phone. And so does a large majority of the people here on this continent and around the world. That was enterprise at work. Let us do our job in an enlightened way, and we will make sure that the world profits.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time, so thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.